actually, when I sing something like that, of that wonderful statement from Teilhard de Chardin, which is joy is an infallible sign of the presence of God. So it's very beautiful to hear that. I wanted to start with a very short teaching from the Chandogya Upanishad, where a very wise teacher was speaking directly to his own son, but also to each of us, sons and daughters alike. In the beginning, said the teacher, there was only being, a first without a second. Out of himself he brought forth the cosmos and entered into everything in it. There is nothing that does not come from him. Of everything, he is the innermost self. He is the truth. He is the soul supreme. All creatures, dear one, have their source in him. He is their home. He is their strength. We are so fortunate in infinite ways to have the most sublime teachings of the wisdom traditions so close to hand. From the north, south, east and west, across thousands of years, we hear repeatedly what it takes for us to live truly fulfilled lives. To be fully confident that life is worth living, and whatever our losses, our griefs or our suffering, it is worth living with appreciation. It is worth living with love. Those teachers remind us constantly where we come from, to whom we belong, and also how inevitably and intricately we belong to one another. That it is our divine as well as our human privilege to live with the greatest possible consideration for one another. To welcome each new life born on this earth. To grieve each life lost. And to keep one another safe. When those teachers speak explicitly or implicitly of transformation, they do not suggest we become different kinds of people, but only that we see more truthfully and truly who we are. That we are souls experiencing a complex human journey, coming into these familiar, fallible bodies for a short time, in order that we would learn and know love. Seeing ourselves through new eyes also transforms our vision of who and what the other is, who and what others are. So that following this spiritual logic, I can only conclude that whether I like your views or find them abhorrent, whether I can understand your decisions or I am appalled by them, we are a single family, in different lands, under one sky. One family, 9 billion of us and rising. And what is that lovely phrase about what distinguishes families? That when you turn up, they must take you in. In other words, they must accept you with all your faults, as you must accept them, despite your faults, despite their faults. This teaching, which is sometimes summarized as the Golden Rule, is one that I've written about and spoken to you about often, including in Seeking the Sacred. And it came to me so strongly when I was preparing this talk for you today and thinking about Christmas, a week from today. And of course, the birth of a man who is for millions, and for me also, a supreme teacher. not only for what he is reputed to have said, but most of all for how he lived. Let me remind you, Jesus of Nazareth, apparently a smallish, darkish Jew, born into a very insignificant family, who lived for only 30 years and who died more than 2,000 years ago, and yet he survives for us, not so much or not only as the catalyst for a religion, but as a supreme teacher of the universal message of love, the universal message, the unconditional message of love. This is the thinking, and it was the practice of a spiritual revolutionary. And the message it offers lets us turn around our usual divisive, judgmental, limiting ways of thinking about ourselves or one another. The usual ways that keep some people safe and others unsafe. That says that some people are special, but not all. As an interfaith teacher who has soaked up the teachings of the great traditions for more than 30 years, I see with increased appreciation that that man, like all the great teachers, but more explicitly than many, lived the truth that love must be courageous and passionate as well as gentle. It must be profoundly compassionate rather than convenient. It must be tolerant of everything that you dislike about yourself and others, and it must constantly be forgiving. This is a teacher who taught that our actions will always count for far more than our words. This is a teacher who taught that presence will always count for far more than our words. In the many stories of his life, we see firsthand how this man refused to obey rules or customs that humiliated, dishonored, or exiled any member of our human family. And how he calls us also to follow in his footsteps. Love one another. Love one another as I have loved you. Does anything else really matter? Whatever our tradition, whatever our culture, whatever our habits of thinking, does anything else really matter?